Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and today I wanted to show you one of the team fights from Invictus Gaming against Top Esports and kind of not explain, kind of speak to the overreactions that people have all of the time, seemingly every single match, because it's pretty annoying is not the right word, but it's like frustrating and obviously wrong. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because when everybody else is overreacting to stuff and you remain consistent, then you're going to be more accurate in the long run. Um, and then also because it creates leverage spots where like people are going to overreact to good wins and bad losses, or bad wins and good losses. I mean, they just overreact to things because they don't have like that nuanced understanding of what's actually going on. So I'm going to play this out. In the first game, it was a pretty close match. In the first game, it was pretty close as well. So, Invictus Gaming against Top Esports. Just to give some background, I've been saying that Invictus Gaming is a very good team, all split long. Other people have been criticizing them for not getting 2-0s, for looking sloppy, and these kinds of things. And I think that the problem with that kind of interpretation of Invictus Gaming is they're assuming that Invictus Gaming is trying to win clean, and they're assuming that giving up, going for high variance plays is always wrong. Well, not always wrong. They're assuming that the decisions that Invictus Gaming is making are bad decisions, and then they also have bad results, so it's like a compounding thing where the people who want to have a negative interpretation are able to have a negative interpretation twice. So right now, the game is on even gold. Invictus Gaming had just lost a team fight around Baron. So let's just play this one out slow. So Top Esports has Baron buff now. And they're shoving in mid lane, trying to end the game. From a team composition perspective, we have Ornn plus Zoe and Ezreal, so like the Team Rocket team composition plus the long range follow up and engage from Ornn. We've got Braum, which is an okay champion. It was mostly just for the safety of lane to like block arrows and stuff like that. I think it also blocks Nautilus ultimate when it's traveling. But we see Orianna. Orianna is another champion that I was on very early compared to most players or analysts or whatever you want to call us. Just a very strong champion, and also good in like the supportive mid laner meta, because she does have some tools to help support her team, including a movement speed buff on her W. She has shielding with her E, and then also a pretty good laning phase and a game-changing ultimate. So, just a very good champion overall. So let's move ahead a little bit. Top Esports is sieging. Jackie Love teleported back into the fight. Both teams' goals right now is basically to have the Jace land poke, have the Ezreal and Zoe land poke. Knight is half health currently, and they just keep looking to thin out the minion waves and get damage onto the carries so that they can win a potential team fight if either team engages. So positionally, Top Esports is in the better spot because they have the luxury of going in or out. Ornn goes in for a pretty bad engage, just a bad engage in general. And that's also probably another reason they picked Braum, was to prevent Invictus Gaming from having that to respond to Ornn's ultimate. Nautilus lands a good hook here onto Ezreal. Jackie Love gets hit by the enchanted crystal arrow from Ashe, and then it gets taken out pretty quickly by the rest of Invictus Gaming. Invictus Gaming super low right now, and it's actually pretty impressive that they were able to survive this. And there are a few things that you should kind of take a look at and appreciate if you're not someone who is very familiar with League of Legends, or even if you're very familiar, you may have missed it on the first read of this. So Karsa was able to knock out Baolon and also get a knock up onto Puff. Right now, the Shy is extremely low, and these caster minions are actually attacking the Shy. So let me get the that pen. Whoa. Alright. So right now, Jackie Love is dead. So these three minions are attacking the Shy. Right? If the Shy walks down this way, or like if he walks this way or he walks along these sides of the minions that are spawning right now, he's going to die. Right? So let's see what he does. He starts walking towards his teammates and towards the minions. So what this does is it blocks the minion attacks, which is a very small. It's a very small thing, but if he didn't do it that way, he could have very easily died. And if he dies, then I don't think Invictus Gaming is going to win this match. Well, they're not going to win the match right now. So let's go back again. So Puff flashed out of the Ornn ultimate and towards Zoe. That's generally a bad idea. But Puff knows that he's in a pretty bad spot right now. He dodges the Zoe Q, which, I mean, that's just mechanics right there. Good micro mechanics. And then, like I said, Orianna has a lot of support for AD carries, so Orianna throws the ball onto Puff, and Puff is able to walk down Knight. 369 almost got a knock-up onto Puff right there as well. So this was pretty good from Puff. I'm pretty critical of Puff, and you have to give him credit when he does pull off a good play. But basically, Invictus Gaming wins from right here. So I think it's important to remember, like, when you're trying to get information. I know that most people watching this video get information from multiple sources. If you are the kind of player or spectator that watches Invictus Gaming play and you have a negative opinion of them, maybe it's time to reevaluate how negative you are when they lose. And if you're following people or listening to people who talk about League of Legends and they keep saying things like Invictus Gaming is bad, look at how much they lose, or like look at this team that they lost to. I mean, I think this speaks for itself. Like the ability to win these two very close matches against top esports, who most people consider the best team in the world. I mean, you can either say that this is a fluke, or you can say that Invictus Gaming, on their gigantic winning streak, is actually a good team, whether or not they lose some of these individual games. Like now, when we get to Worlds, in the group stage, it is important to remember that the group stage, you're only going to have the best of ones between teams, but it is like a round robin format or a double round robin. I'm actually not sure how they're going to do it this year because they might have to switch it up with coronavirus, but that's how it typically goes, is a double round robin, I believe. So you get 6 games. So in one game, yes, they might lose a really bad game to a big underdog, but over the 6 games, you're going to get really good Invictus Gaming and probably really bad Invictus Gaming. Because the difference between the two is not very much. Games in League of Legends are often decided by very little things. So that's that. Let me get the odds for tomorrow, and then I wanted to mention something about LS, because LS is constantly like just bashing players at this point, which is pretty crazy for somebody with the amount of followers that he has. So tomorrow we have Sunning against OMG. I think you know what side I'm on that one. Sunning's minus 420. Vici Gaming against Dominus, minus 435 to plus 300. Dominus is probably the worst team in the league, one of the worst teams in the world. So I think you know what side I am on that one as well. In Korea, we have a Freak of Freaks against Hanwha Life. Hanwha Life was able to take one game off of T1. DRX against Damwon Gaming. That's going to be a lot of fun. Or actually, that's a couple days from now. That's the 30th. Never mind. So I wanted to kind of mention LS again. So this is from yesterday. So LS basically said, "Why does Kennen have Morello? Lol." So what LS is talking about is this item right here. So this is Morellonomicon, and Morellonomicon costs 3,000 gold, gives you flat magic pen, gives you ability power, gives you health, and it gives you Grievous Wounds. Grievous Wounds reduces healing by 40%, which is very important in a lot of team fights, because the difference between winning and losing a team fight is often like a couple health on an important target. So the question becomes like, who is Kennen trying to stop from healing? Because the thought behind Morellonomicon is that there's a lot of additional gold in that item that you need to spend in order for it to be considered, in order to upgrade the item from Oblivion Orb into Morellonomicon. So let's look at Morellonomicon real quick. And I think it's really overstated how bad Morellonomicon is. There are good times to buy it and there are bad times to buy it. I think it's right to be on the lookout for people who are making gigantic mistakes with item builds, but it's also important to realize when you're just being dogmatic, and I think LS has crossed over into being dogmatic about this kind of stuff, and it's impacting his ability to be fair with his criticism sometimes. And like, it's funny because it's Wild Turtle, and I make fun of Wild Turtle all the time. I think Wild Turtle is not a very good player, not a very intelligent player. Maybe not intelligent, but thoughtful. He's not a thoughtful player, because maybe he's intelligent, he just doesn't think. But probably not. So 92%. So the gold value of Morellonomicon, based on the stats alone, is 2,789.17. And it costs 3,000, so that's 92.97% efficient. That means you're spending about 200 gold for the Grievous Wounds passive. So you should be asking yourself, like, is that 200 gold investment worth getting Grievous Wounds? And I think the answer is obviously yes. So let's just make sure we're covering all the bases, because I know if there's somebody who follows LS dogmatically and they're watching this video, they're going to be upset. So Oblivion Orb itself, which he is not critical of, is 89.69% efficient, and you're spending 1,600 gold, and you're not getting the Grievous Wounds passive. If your goal is to get the Grievous Wounds passive, then you need to upgrade into the Morellonomicon, right? And we're talking about a Kennen, so a Kennen who's able to apply Morellonomicon onto 5 champions in a best case scenario. But even if it's just applying Morellonomicon onto 1 champion, it needs to be worth roughly 200 gold. And like, I'm not going to get into like how do you calculate how much the Grievous Wounds is worth, because it's like a lot more complicated math, and I don't really want to do that. But basically, you would have to figure out the gold value of 1 health point. So basically, just looking at this number, you would have to stop the opponent from regenerating 100 health. And when you're playing against an Aphelios, you're gonna mitigate a lot more than that, just for starters. So yeah, it's 89% for the first 1,600 gold, and then the next 1,400 gold you're getting an additional 50 ability power, 100 health. The magic pen stays the same, but again, you're not upgrading it for the magic pen. You're upgrading it for the Grievous Wounds. So it stays roughly the same. So again, the question is it worth it to buy Grievous Wounds on Kennen against this team composition? That's really the question that LS is asking. So let's take a look at the champions that they're playing against and what they have to heal. So Ornn, the Morellonomicon is not really going to be worth it for Grievous Wounds. You don't need Grievous Wounds to take down Ornn, really, in general. Set, you do get a little bit of value from Morellonomicon, but again, this is not the reason why you're buying Morellonomicon. Against Azir, Azir doesn't have anything to really heal himself. Like, he could get a heal from Wild Turtle, but that is probably not why you're buying Morellonomicon. Then you have Aphelios, and it's like check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, because Aphelios is one of the best healers, self-healers in the game. So when Aphelios has his lifesteal gun, like, he can go from 0 health to 100% health in a matter of seconds. So it's obvious that the answer is Grievous Wounds is fine in this scenario. So you can try to make the argument like, well, Kennen isn't going to get value against Ornn, not going to get value against Set. Kennen's job is not to kill Ornn or kill Set. It's to get onto the Aphelios and apply the Grievous Wounds and potentially kill the champion. So if that is the question, is that extra 200 gold investment worth it to make Aphelios' life difficult? The answer is obviously yes. So at this point, I think that LS is crossing over himself into the being dogmatic kind of thing. But there are a few more things that we can take into consideration to think about. Is it worth it to buy Morellonomicon at this point in the game? So obviously, I already think the answer is yes, because as long as Kennen keeps Aphelios from regenerating like 10% of his health, which would be probably about 100 health, it would probably be more than 100 health. So in that situation, it would be breaking even. For every health point that it stops Aphelios from regenerating after that is all added value. So Aphelios, right now, he doesn't have much magic resistance, which makes the magic pen a little bit better, but not enough to justify the purchase in LS's opinion. But we have to also think about what else might happen in this game that would incentivize building a Morellonomicon. And it's an Ocean Rift. So on the Ocean Rift, whoever gets the soul is going to be able to regenerate more health throughout the game by dealing damage to the enemy. So that's another reason why you would potentially want it. I mean, in that situation, I don't think a Morellonomicon is going to save your team from losing that game, because the buff is extremely good, and Grievous Wounds doesn't get rid of 100% of healing, it gets rid of 40%. So you're probably still screwed in that situation. But so let's take into consideration what else is Aphelios going to build. So here are the most popular items for Aphelios based on Plat Plus. Let's just do Master Plus, and it's going to be lifesteal items. So we have Death's Dance, Bloodthirster. You could do, basically those two, Death's Dance and Bloodthirster. And both of those items are going to increase Aphelios' healing by a significant amount as well. So you're not only making your item choice based on what's happening right now, you can also project into the future. And that's one thing that I'm sure LS could do and maybe has done, but doesn't always apply. So like if LS's argument is this is the most important fight in the game, you need to be 100% or better. You need to have 100% efficiency or better in this fight. You need to optimize for this fight to have a good chance of winning this match, and I think that's also wrong. But again, it's tough to be too critical without knowing the player's intention, right? So that's why I brought up Quine's principle of charity, and I've brought this up a bunch of times. So this is a philosophical thing that a lot of people learn about in college. So I'm just going to read it. This is the summary right here. Okay. We make maximum sense of the words and thoughts of others when we interpret in a way that optimizes agreement. The principle may be invoked to make sense of a speaker's utterances when one is unsure of their meaning. In particular, Quine's use of the principle gives it this latter wide domain. So this is typically used for people who are making philosophical arguments, like why would that person make that argument? That doesn't make any sense. Instead of saying that, you say, why is that person making that argument? Let's try to make sense of it, and then reevaluate if we think it makes any sense or not. So instead of LS asking a rhetorical question, why does Kennen have Morello? Lol, which is him basically saying, what an idiot! I can't believe this guy just built Morellonomicon. There's no reason to build Morellonomicon, right? So if that's the viewpoint that he's coming from, then he has stopped being an analyst, and he has started to become just inciting a riot, which is basically what he's going to accomplish by saying this kind of thing to the hundreds of thousands of people. I'm assuming he has hundreds of thousands of followers, the hundreds of thousands of people who follow him. And this is a problem because a lot of the people who are following LS don't take the time to go through the math or the decision making themselves. They just hear LS say something like this and then regurgitate it, and it becomes dogma. And dogma is bad. Dogma is like an unthinking opinion that is never going to change, because you're basically making the assertion that there's no way to change your mind about that topic because it's already been decided. And actually, I'm gonna get another quote because I've kind of like talked to this. Okay, so this is something from Areopagitica, which is another philosophical book that Milton wrote, and this is probably one of the most important things that I've ever, one of the most important concepts that I've ever like learned about. It's one of my like founding principles for like how I view the world and how I view life. So it is, the context is somewhat religious. Like I'm not a very religious person, but I'm not a religious person. The context of this is coming from religion, and he's using this idea with a religious framework because he knows that it's going to be the easiest way for people to understand what he's talking about. So this is what Milton wrote. Truth is compared in Scripture to a streaming fountain. So think of it as a fountain that you would see in the middle of like a town square or something like that. Just an actual fountain, or like a waterfall, or whatever you want to think of it as. Any body of water that is continuously flowing is a good image to use for this. If her waters flow not in a perpetual progression, they sicken into a muddy pool of conformity and tradition. And actually, let me find the longer quote. Yeah, okay. So, truth is compared in Scripture to a streaming fountain. If her waters flow not in perpetual progression, they sicken into a muddy pool of conformity and tradition. A man or woman, but he says man, a man may be a heretic in the truth, and if he believes things only because his pastor says so, or the assembly so determines, without knowing other reason, though his belief be true, yet the very truth he holds becomes his heresy. So he's talking about someone who like goes to church, listens to the pastor, takes it as the truth, and is unwilling to change their mind about that statement ever again, because they learned it and it was the truth, and they're not going to reconsider that. So I believe at this point, LS is posing as someone who thinks of things like a streaming fountain, but it's seeming less and less likely, and it's a very difficult standard to hold somebody to. Like obviously, everybody has their biases. I have my biases with certain teams, with certain players, and I admit that. So I don't want to be too critical of LS, but I am going to be more critical of his followers, his quote unquote followers, because they are not the ones doing the heavy lifting that LS has either done in the past or is currently doing. I don't know which one of those is the case. But like you have to be more. You have to use your critical thinking capacities more often, and a lot of the people who follow LS don't do that. They just learn something from LS, not the tools of how to do it, but just hear LS talk about something and then spew it out as something that's true for the rest of all time. And in a game like League of Legends, things change constantly, so you have to be more diligent in how you handle these kinds of things. So I just wanted to say that at the end of this video because it's pretty annoying to like, think about it from my perspective. I'm somebody who's been focusing on items for 4 years, 5 years, right? And 4 or 5 years ago, I was told, this is stupid. You don't need to know this kind of stuff to be good at League of Legends. Then I had Weldon Green from CLG reach out to me. I had Dylan Falco reach out to me. I think Freak commented on one of my videos. So all of these different people who are working in professional environments saying, you know, what you're doing is actually, it makes a lot of sense. Like, good job. Like, good for you. Like, it makes a lot of sense. And I think LS was doing some of this around the same time. But people were thinking that it had no application to real League of Legends when it obviously has real applications to League of Legends. So now LS, who is one of the people who has been fighting the good fight for multiple years, is becoming more and more dogmatic, or maybe not dogmatic, but more like opinionated. So he's using opinion and his previous knowledge about item statistics to like be super critical of teams, and it's really easy to see why Kennen would do this. And that's why I've been talking a lot recently about not only material League of Legends, but positional League of Legends, the tempo aspect of things, and all of these different criteria determine which team is winning a game and which team will win a game based on the game state. Like, it's a very complicated system. I'm not saying it's easy. And I think the kind of issue we run into is that if you follow somebody like LS and you're not paying attention to all of these things, then you start to trick yourself into thinking that League of Legends is simple, and it's not simple. So that's all I've got today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.